Hello, Brent. Welcome to the show.
Kate, it is an absolute honor and pleasure to be here. Looking forward to our conversation today.
And I'm looking forward to it as well. I was actually just showing you sitting right here on my desk. I have the latest issue of Financial Advisor magazine with the young advisors to watch. And as I'm flipping through, your face popped up. And that is not an uncommon thing. I see you popping up in the news. You're like on covers of magazines. You're in magazines. You are everywhere with what you and your partner have built at Facet Wealth. And thank you for being here and telling your story, because what you're building and what you're doing to provide disruption in the profession is fantastic and it's needed. But part of the story that we're going to talk about and that you are so open about is that it's not easy to get there, and that there are a lot of lessons along the way and a lot of sacrifices that have to be made. And one of the themes that's come through on this show, and wonderful Peta Diamantidis said this on the podcast last year, she's in Australia. She's like, one of the reasons financial advisors aren't entrepreneurial is because they've been fat and happy so long, they haven't had to be. But you took a different path. So
yeah. Well, I'll say, where do we start? 16 years ago. Well, so I will say this, you got one thing right, that what we are doing here at Facet is needed in the industry, but also for, tens of millions of American households. I say that jokingly because you say innovator, disruptor. Now, I don't wake up every single day and think of myself as the innovator, the disruptor. I give that credit to my two other co-founders, Anders Jones, who's our CEO, and Patrick McKenna, who's our executive chairman. They're the real, they're the individuals coming out of San Francisco doing the innovation disruptive thing. And I just happen to be a financial planner who believes deeply in a cause, which I'll share with you here now that we're kicking this off. So here's my story. And it all actually ties back to one thing that I believed day one when I started in this industry. And by the way, I actually didn't even know about financial planning when I left college. There was a class at the University of Notre Dame. Can I jokingly say go Irish? I'd have my plan like a champion today signed behind me. So they had a class on personal financial planning as a senior. And I'm going, okay, I just spent 4 years to get a degree from Notre Dame, from any college, right? Now we're gonna go make money, but no one actually ever told you how to manage the money. And I was like, this is great, perfect timing. So I actually signed up for the class, was really excited to start this thing, went over the day before the class started, and it canceled it because only 3 people signed up. Myself, the teacher, and the teacher's assistant. But that was 16 years ago that started my journey into this amazing thing called financial planning, because I looked around and said, if I don't know how to do this thing, there are 2 things we're never taught in school: money and relationships, right? Yes. But yet, what are the 2 things that impact every single day of impact us every single day of our lives? Money and relationships. I didn't go down the relationship expertise path, but I went down the money expertise path. But here's what I learned, and here's what I believe today. So we started Facet Wealth in 2016. Then I'll go back a little bit and walk you through the journey very quickly. In 2016. We sat down and said, what do we believe when it comes, like, what does this industry need? What do people deserve access to? And we said, our belief is that unbiased, personalized financial advice that integrates into every facet of your life is essential to living well. It's, in my opinion, our opinion, it is as essential as something as healthcare to our overall well-being, right? Our financial health, like our physical health, our mental health, occupational health. These are all things that matter critically to a life well lived. But yet so many people lack access to, whether you want to call it financial planning, financial wellness, education, tools, resources, expert advice to do it. And so in 2016, we said, there's a gap. There's a problem in the industry. There's a quality of advice problem out there, quality of advice issue. There's a cost issue and there's an access issue. Let's go solve that problem. That was 2016. Now, my real quick background, I spent 10 years in the industry, working for a smaller, sort of the boutique, small town wealth management firm, traditional model. I will always jokingly say I'm a reformed AUM charging financial advisor. I've learned my ways. We now do the subscription membership fee thing, right? Which I believe is the way of the future. Wayne Gretzky said, skate to where the puck is going. I believe this is where the puck is going. We're helping to sort of lead that. And I realized, 2 things. Number one, my family never had access to the kind of advice that I was rendering and delivering to my clients. And I said, that's not okay. My family deserves better. And really, it's a story of all families deserve better, right? If you had, let's just say, more than $1 million, you get access to a really high quality financial advisor. But if you didn't, what were your options? It's sort of DIY or robo, right? Online investment platform, call centers. But when mom and dad get sick, who do you call? A 1-800 number? Yeah. When your kids are graduating from college and you want to celebrate, who do you call? A 1-800 number? I said, this is not okay. There needs to be better quality, which I believe is the CFP certification. I believe that's the gold standard. The cost needs to come down. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then access to this. Access is not just affordability. Access is how you communicate to people, right? Not using jargon-laced language when you're talking to them, so they don't feel ashamed or stressed when they're calling to their financial advisor. And all of this led to 2016, where we started Facet Wealth, and fast forward 5 years, and we're one of the fastest growing RAs in the country, and really, really excited to be disrupting the industry.
And has it all been just totally smooth sailing from day one over the last 5 years? I keep seeing articles. You guys are raising more and more money, and your clientele is growing, and your numbers are unreal. Does that just magically happen, Brent?
Of course, that's the way. That's the tip of the iceberg. That's the 10% you see, right? But then, like, the 90% that actually happens. Of course not. I think, for all first of all, for all of the people out there, I know I talk about Facet Wealth being sort of a disruptive force and innovative force, and I believe that we are. Because of the way we're changing the model. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I also do look out there in the entire industry to all the really good financial planners doing excellent work for their clients. Like, we're building an amazing community. This is the movement for what the new era of financial advice, consumer-centric financial advice should be. So I commend everybody out there for doing really, really amazing work.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is this. I spent 10 years really becoming an expert in my craft. I had no desire to leave my previous company. We had actually just closed a merger in January of 2016. And then in February 2016 is when I met Anders Jones, who's now our CEO, one of our co-founders. So, things changed pretty quickly. That wasn't part of the overall scheme, which is why I say jokingly, I'm not a disruptor or innovator. I met some people who said, we want to go change this industry. We don't know how to do financial planning. I said, I do. Let's get started. So we started the company. And you always think it's going to be easier than it is. We actually went, I think, about 18 months without paychecks when we started the company, right? We're trying to bootstrap. You don't want to go raise money. You need to say, hey, what's the business model? What are we building? We brought on a chief technology officer, a CTO, because we're a personal finance and a fintech company. So you need software developers. And we brought in our actual first software developer to get this company started. And it took some time, right? One of the things I'll share out there for everybody who is either already an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur, and all the financial advisors, is that sometimes failure is the biggest, it's the most important way to learn. We didn't always get it right. We didn't always know the answer, but sometimes you have to try things. It doesn't work, and you have to keep moving forward. And that's how, 5 years now, we're 8,000 clients in all 50 states, 100 plus CFP professionals here at Facet Wealth. I think we just crossed 250, 260 employees this week with a new hiring class. And, I'm going to knock on wood. Things are going well. But it takes time. It takes a lot of hard work. And, I give some props and some kudos to my team back there. We're all distributed around the country. I can't even say in Baltimore, where we started the company, for the amazing work they do every single day for our clients and for our team.
Yeah. So what are some of those early failures? I mean, you use the word failures, and that's how you learned, looking back, especially any that somebody else could learn from you and what you went through. I'm a big fan of trying to learn from others, knowing that I'm still going to make mistakes, but...
Well, so where do we start, I think, is the first thing. One of the things you'll find is, especially for us too, we are an RIA, but we're a non-traditional RIA because we're also fintech and personal finance, putting that together. So we always came in and said, how do you break things and try and fix them? So failure it's like fail small, fail fast, right? It's not always, how do you find a big failure? A big failure is not a good thing. Like, how do you test things and then figure out, hey, that didn't work, or this messaging didn't work for a client, or, oh, what this one did, this is actually a good way to go. I think a bunch of things. Very early on, before we had technology built, I think we, just like a lot of the financial advisors out there, we had to cobble together different pieces of software before we could then build it internally, right? Because one of the key to our technology is actually lowering the cost, and cost is a function of time. So one of the first things we build is our time model, right? How can we use technology? And this is an interesting thing, time tracking. I'd spent the 2 years before founding Facet, not knowing that I was going to start a company, timing everything I did as a financial advisor on a $20 Target watch. We'll call it a Target watch to make it sound a little bit nicer, right? Everything from preparing agendas to reading tax returns, estate planning documents, building financial plans. I knew everything down to the second on a spreadsheet. And so when we started the company, I had all this information. We said, okay, let's use this and figure out, well, if technology can start squeezing out 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% of the time it takes to complete individual tasks, well, then you can lower the cost by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, right on down the line. Yeah. What you find is it's not that easy. You don't just take a spreadsheet, plug it into a system, and all of a sudden magically have a pricing model. So, we've had to change pricing a little bit. We've always been subscription-based or flat fee. That has always been a part of it. But we had to change. How do we charge? What is that price level? How does technology actually help us? but we knew we were going to have to adjust this along the way. So we took small steps and said, well, that didn't work. We can come back. If you take 1 or 2 steps, you can always take a step, like retrace your steps, got a new path. If you take 100 steps, it sometimes becomes harder to do that. And I think the biggest mistake, and this is actually one of the reasons that Anders and Patrick decided to start the company, is that's back when the DOL, the original DOL fiduciary rule, was proposed. And so there is a congressional report that said 8 million people are going to lose access to financial advice because the costs are going to increase from the DOL fiduciary. And I think we know what happened now. I mean, it's been taken off the plate. It's been put back on the plate. It's been changed. Now we have regulation best interest. And so we actually said, there's an opportunity. Well, if we get a small portion of 8 million households, that's a pretty good business. So our first business model was actually going out to financial advisors and saying, look, you have clients that no longer fit your ideal client profile, that maybe they're not profitable, but you care about them. You want to take and you want them to get great service. Why don't we come in? We'll pay you for those relationships. We'll responsibly transition them to Facet Wealth. We'll give them a dedicated CFP, comprehensive financial planning. We'll manage their assets, all that kind of stuff. And we thought that was going to work. Boy, was
that is a strategy that a lot of financial planners use.
Well, so here's the thing: it can work on a smaller scale, right? If you're so, my previous company, we had 300 clients when I stepped down in 2016. So if we go find a business and buy 100 clients or transition 100 clients over, like, that's a good deal. When you're trying to help millions of households, smaller transactions of 50, 75, 100 clients, it's really hard. I mean, that's cave to cave, right? You're going in every single cave. You're trying to, find 25 or 50 people to come join you. And that became very hard. We also found, despite the fact that financial advisors would sit down, and I still believe that all the financial advisors out there sort of watching it live or listening to the recording are probably going, yeah, I do know there are clients that probably don't fit my ideal client profile. Maybe I'm not servicing them properly, not because you're a bad person, you're just busy. Every advisor we sat down with would go, that makes a ton of sense, but not my clients. And so we talked to a lot of advisors, go, that's a great idea. Yeah, but not my clients. And so all of a sudden we sat there for, I want to say the first 2 years, sort of like pounding our heads against the wall going, why isn't this working? And that was actually, I'll say it was a big mistake, but it was a failure that we learned from. And that's when we pivoted and said, let's just go to direct to consumer. Why are we sitting here trying to go door to door for financial advisors? Let's go to direct to consumer. And that's why last year, in 2020, we quadrupled in size. All of a sudden we run from just over 1,000 clients. We're now approaching 8,000. And one of the fastest growing RIAs. And that was one of the big mistakes. And look, there's a bunch of stuff we can talk about in terms of really identifying an ideal client for your firm. And that really works, by the way, for smaller organizations too. That is critically important. Knowing who you serve, number one, like what one problem do you serve, and be the one place those people can go, right? Yep. What is I call it unique success proposition. I hate value proposition, unique success proposition. How do you help this group of people find success in life? Right.
And I like the fact that you went direct to consumer, I say, because that also feeds more into what your mission is and finding the people that actually aren't yet working with an advisor or planner, right? That's reaching all of the people that are unserved or underserved.
Well, it's actually quite interesting too, because one of the things you learn is that when an individual or a household or a couple is already working with a financial advisor, and you go in there and say, here's what we do, they have a sense of what financial advice is, and they've already bought into the idea of working with a financial advisor. Now, the breadth of services, the quality of the advice, how you charge, all of that can change. I mean, try explaining to somebody who's been working with a financial advisor for 10 years and has been paying a percentage of assets that you're no longer going to charge a percentage of assets, you're going to charge a flat subscription fee, right? It's sort of like, it's like the lights don't really turn on in that situation. But when you go to direct to consumer, 75 to 80% of our clients have never worked with a financial advisor before. They're not even sure what it is. They think it's just investment management, right? Oh, well, if I have $1 million or $500,000, I roll over, of course I should pay an advisor money. And you're going, well, that's part of it, but actually, let me tell you what it is, right? So there's this educational process that occurs when you go direct to consumer, and they haven't already worked with advisors. So we actually had to change our marketing, the messaging we used, right? Our team of client success managers, we never ask our CFP professionals ever to sell. We have a team of client success managers that talks to prospects. Is here's what Facet does. Here's what planning does. Here's how we can help you. Now let's pair you with the best CFP we have here at Facet Wealth through situation. But your messaging has to change, right? How you talk to your consumers and to prospects has to change, because now they're coming in not going, oh, how is your advice different? They're going, I'm not even sure what this is. Can you help me? So it was a really interesting transitional period of the last, I'd say 12 or 24 months that led us to where we are today.
Well, that's a really important thing because, with listeners to this show all over the world, that's a conversation I've had for a long time because I started this subscription in my prior business in early 2013, and I've had the fortunate position of traveling around the world and speaking with people, and I've met so many advisors and planners that are like, I would love to do that, but
Hmm.
that's the exact challenge. Like, but people don't know what it is, and how do I explain it? And they're like, because it doesn't exist, then people won't adopt it. So that's a really actually important lesson, Brent, and what you guys learned there is this is even in the US a couple of years ago, right? We're not talking
Hmm.
about somewhere else. So for as evolved as a profession is here, there's still tens of millions of families that don't know, I don't know, hundreds of millions maybe, that really don't understand what true goals-based financial planning is. And that's going to be the same around the world. So it is about that. How do you educate them? How do you have the right messaging and
Hmm.
reaching those people that don't yet have those preconceived notions about what advice is so that you can have that fresh slate and explain it?
Well, right. And so first of all, you're the innovator. So you started this in 2013. We were in 2016, right? We just then put together other
Oh, yeah,
pieces to the
you're way
business model.
behind.
What were you doing in 2016? Where were you in 2013 when we needed you? But here will be our greatest challenge and our greatest opportunity. Our greatest
Yeah.
challenge will be to be changing the industry, right? So the industry has two things, right? Well, first of all, they have great distribution, but I think they have a very poor product overall. And by the way, I'm not speaking of all really good financial planners and
Yeah.
CFPs and people doing a good job out there. I'm talking about some of the larger firms or larger organizations that are really still peddling and selling investment advice, and they're charging for it. They have fantastic distribution because everybody knows the Fidelities, the Vanguards, the Schwabs, right? They're all over the place. You watch college football. I'm a big college football fan. You see their ads everywhere. They have
Yeah.
great distribution, terrible products, service, in my opinion. I believe financial planning, as it should be, looking at every facet of your life, it should include money, but it's not just about money, right? It's about those amazing life milestones. That is an amazing service. We have to improve our distribution, meaning awareness. And that's partly my job as a chief evangelist. So our greatest challenge will actually be sharing with people, there is a better way to do this, right? We think it's more fair. It's more transparent. It's right for you. It's just going to take some time. And by the way, that may not be the best message for going out there for people who are 65 facing retirement because they've been taught over the last 40 years of their professional career that the old school model is the right model. But here's the other opportunity. If all of a sudden you go out there, you build a profitable subscription membership company, right? You're going to start getting all the 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 45-year-olds who are making good money, right? They may not have $1 million saved yet. They'll get there with your guidance. They're willing to pay for advice. They understand the new way of it. They're used to subscription-based models. That's the blue ocean. The red ocean is going, okay, well, 60, and I get it, 65 rolling over $1 million or $2 million, great client. But what about the young professional, the married couple at 35 having 2 kids and thinking, oh my goodness, I want to buy my dream home, college, retirement. What about the emergency fund, paying down debt, raising kids? Holy cow, right? Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. There's an amazing opportunity there. You just have to understand how to access that market.
Yeah. So what did you guys learn on the pricing? You mentioned that you kind of had to play around with that and with the time tracking. And I also want to note that you said that you guys had to build your own software, and that's becoming a bigger and bigger thing. And you guys were actually featured in the recent New Frontiers in Wealth Management white paper that was co-authored by Bob Veris
Yes.
and Michael Jackson, talking about being a peak 2 firm, which is a firm that actually just rethinks it all from the ground up, takes a lot of risk, goes down through that adaptive valley from peak 1 and gets up to peak 2. And that's one of the big pieces is more and more financial planning firms are realizing, look, cobbling together all this software isn't working. We have to build something proprietary. Like you said, to give that scale, the time, the the ability to flex your pricing.
Yeah, I call it for traditional advisors, and I think they'll get it out there. I call it the technology whack-a-mole game. Right? You look at a traditional advisory firm, and I've looked at the data, and look, Bob Veres, and I think it's Matthew Jackson. I love the work they're doing. A big fan of Bob, and of course of Matthew too when it comes to time tracking and pricing models. I call it technology whack-a-mole. You have 6, 7, 8 disparate technology solutions. They sell them that they're going to talk to one another. They don't. There's still 6, 7, 8 different systems, and it becomes a thorn in your side. I mean, the premise we had when we started the company was not, hey, let's cherry pick a couple of good pieces from this company and that company, put it together. We actually completely unbundled the entire thing and said, all right, there's 2 different ways to look at this. Number one, what's the business model of the future for the consumer, for people? Because I even hate saying consumer. But for people, what do they deserve? What kind of advice do they really need in life? How are they going to pay for that advice? And what do they, how do we evolve and adapt with them? On the other side said, how do you actually build the business model that focuses on cost up versus revenue down? Right. The industry always said, hey, well, if we have $1 million, we charge 1%, we're making $10,000. How do we build something underneath that? What we said is actually what we want to do to make this more accessible. Let's actually start at the cost part of this. And how do you take that cost, build it up, and then go, okay, we have our cost built in here. Now, what's the model we want on top of that to be profitable so we have a successful business? So one of the things we found is, look, you can on a spreadsheet say every advisor is going to spend. I'm making up times here. I don't remember the spreadsheet. It's a long time ago. It's like a different life for me. 30 minutes reading estate planning documents, building a estate plan, just making up a random thing. Right? You go, oh well, it should only, every advisor should take 30 minutes. What you find is some advisors will still take an hour and a half. Some advisors might take 10 minutes because they've had experience in that. So what we found is over time we had to figure out, okay, what is the technology we have to build? And by the way, the whole premise is this. Instead of having 7 or 8 disparate pieces of technology that you sort of, try and bundle together, we said, how do we actually build a fully integrated end-to-end planning suite that improves the client experience, the way they sort of interact with their life and their money, but also makes our advisors more efficient and more productive? What we found is by doing this, we've actually reduced the amount of time it takes to do little things like preparing agendas and getting ready for meetings and providing financial advice by about 80% so far. Right?
Wow.
That is crashing the price barrier. And all of a sudden you go, okay, we've now unlocked a new market, not only in terms of the pricing model, how we're charging, because we're paying a flat fee instead of the AUM model, which cuts out so many people in this country. Right. But now we've actually made it profitable for our business, which is important because we want to be a generational financial services company. We want to help generations of American households live more enriched and prosperous lives. So that's one of the things. But you find that the spreadsheet doesn't always translate over to how people actually act and the technology you have to build. So there's always an iteration in terms of saying, okay, how do we build the technology? How do we use it properly? How do we actually reduce that variability and time it takes? So now we actually have a very consistent model of the time it takes to build specific plans for certain people. So we know our pricing model and a sort of profitability model pans out longer term.
I like that. Just flipping the whole thing on its head. Well, and also, the fact that you're trying to reach the people that aren't yet working with advisors and that need that more accessible price point, then, I'm not hearing you say, hey, and we took the amount on top of that and made the fee as high as possible to just test what the market would bear, right? It's about, okay, how do we keep our costs down so that we can still have a price point that is accessible for all these American families and stay profitable? And that's important.
Well, one of my favorite quotes is, look, let's go back to an example we all know. LearnVest. LearnVest, really neat idea many, many years ago. They got acquired by Northwestern Mutual. I'm not shy in sharing my opinion on Northwestern Mutual, but so LearnVest sold to Northwestern Mutual, bought them. LearnVest sold, whatever you want to say, because they couldn't build the profitable business model they needed to be sustainable. So Northwestern Mutual said, hey, here's a great company. Really what they bought is like tens of thousands of life insurance leads, and then eventually shut down LearnVest internally. Right. And so the way I look at this is, and I'm going to try this quote. I always butcher this. So give me like 2 chances here. All right, Kate. And then, and it's, we don't run a business to make profits. We make profits to run a business. I got it right the first time. I'm impressed. Right. But do you see the nuance there?
Yeah.
The whole idea is not, look, do we want to be a profitable business? Yes. Do we want to build a generational firm and help tens of millions of American households? Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. But doing well by doing good is not a bad thing. Right. Yeah. But if you have to be profitable so you can reinvest in your people, reinvest in your company, make sure that all of a sudden 3-5 years from now, another big company doesn't step in and say, we're going to buy you now. We're going, we're not making any money. We can't do it. We want to be in control of our destiny because we believe the way we're doing it is what people deserve. And so we're going to fight for that every single day. And we have to build a profitable business model to make sure we can do it a year from now, 10 years from now, 40 years from now, when the kids and grandkids of our current clients are becoming clients of Facet Wealth.
Well, and part of that cost savings is also, correct me if I'm wrong, even before the pandemic, you guys didn't really have people working in offices.
Right. Yeah. This is where I can say we're truly, we can see the future, right? 2016, we said, you know what, the world is going to go through something crazy. Let's do it. No, in 2016. And again, this goes back to Anders and Patrick, CEO and executive chairman, right? Both co-founders in terms of their vision of the future. Right? It's sort of this idea that this distributed remote workforces are going to be the future of the workforce. And so in 2016, I shouldn't say our entire, 80% of our employees, our team was remote. So we had a small group in Baltimore. We had a small foothold, and we always said our global headquarters, right? Because world domination definitely on the roadmap. We always jokingly say internally,
Nice.
but we had 20% of our employees. So it was 40 or 50 people, something like that. I think back in Baltimore, as it grew over time, and then but 80% of our team, all of our CFP professionals, were always remote, working from home, which actually creates some interesting challenges. So the funny thing is well, I shouldn't say the funny thing because I want to be very sensitive to the fact that a global pandemic hit, which was not good for a lot of people. But when COVID-19 hit, and a lot of companies were saying, geez, how do we actually go to this virtual delivery model? We were already there. We had it built.
Yep.
And that's one of the many reasons why 2020 was such a banner year for growth, when we quadrupled in size, because we had the team. It was built. We knew how to, we had our pods and our teams of planners around the country. We had our management teams in place. We knew how to coach. We knew how to deliver the advice. The technology allowed for the distributed workforce. We even had a couple planners like literally do road trips across the country to Airbnbs, and they could work in any
Yes.
city. Like, we had built
Love
it,
it.
and it was a really cool story. And so the global health pandemic, I'm not going to say it was a good thing. Our business model allowed us to adapt to that environment, and we're thriving, and we're growing, and we're finding a lot of people, because of a global health crisis, are now looking at their financial health and going, you know what? I should probably be thinking about how I'm going to plan for tomorrow, the expected, the unexpected, the amazing life milestones coming on the pike, and really how to improve my financial wellness in 20 or 30 years.
Yep. Yeah. That's awesome. And where are all these CFP professionals coming from? Because you're talking about like this exponential growth. So are they coming from other firms? Are they coming sort of fresh out of uni?
Yeah, coming out of the woods, right? All of a sudden, it's like, if you build it, they will come, right? That kind of a baseball guy, right? So all of a sudden they show up and like, oh, there they are. No,
Yeah.
it's a great point. So right now, most of them come from other larger established firms, all right? Because the larger established firms have these big workforces of CFPs who are going, maybe I'm not happy. I don't believe in the advice model. They're still charging AUM. The technology stinks. It's from like the 1980s kind of thing. And then they see this, and here's a really cool thing. The current generation and the next generation of financial planners believe in this mission. The vast majority of financial planners get into this industry to do good work for people, to build stronger communities, neighborhoods, families, all that kind of stuff. But then when you build a company that's for them, they go, that's interesting. I want to go there. Because now I tell everybody who joins us, all of our CFP professionals, their first day of the work, I do this little rah-rah thing that I do to say, hey, you're at a different firm. And I say, but I want you to remember one thing. You no longer have a job. You have a purpose. Like, we're building something different. Like, welcome to the wild and crazy ride we call Facet Wealth, a startup. But we're going to do some amazing things. Get ready for it. And it's meant in a very positive way. So they're usually coming from larger firms today. Our bigger initiative is, how do we actually grow talent organically? Right? Because as you think about, one of the challenges a lot of bigger firms, especially firms growing so quickly, face is, how do you find and hire enough good CFPs that are right for the business model? Not just good CFPs and good advice, but good for the
Yes.
business, remote, distributed, using our technology, learning the Facet
Yep.
way. And so our next big investment is finding those really talented younger professionals coming out of college and sort of growing them internally. So I guess they don't learn the bad habits of the old school way of delivering financial advice. And we get to grow them and show them a great career, and take really good care of them, so they can then in turn take care of tens of millions of American households.
And you mentioned the global expansion. So with listeners all around the world wanting something like this to come to their neck of the woods.
Yeah, I guess send me an email or call me, and I'll put you in touch with Anders, who can work on the global expansion. I will say this, all kidding aside, the first thing, Kate, you mentioned this too. I look at these numbers all the time. By the math, there's about 95 million households that lack access to high quality financial advice. And by the way, there's another 30 million that in theory have access to high quality financial advice. But if you look at how they define financial advice, and you can be a real estate agent, estate planning attorney. I'll say CPA, by the way, nothing against CPAs. I have one myself. I think they're fantastic, right? But there's no standard of what financial advice is. So step number one for us is, let's really make sure that the people here that we know and love in all 50 states have access to unbiased, personalized financial advice that integrates into every facet of their life, so they can live life to its fullest. We'll start there. I'm never going to say no to global expansion, but one step at a time here at Facet Wealth.
Yeah, that's amazing. And a lot of what we talked about, Brent, I mean, we talked about the Facet story, but really it's tying in all of the things that you're passionate about. And like we mentioned earlier, what we need to see evolving in this profession, and some of those outdated things that are happening at the larger firms that just, aren't really working well for the clients or the employees, honestly. So it's good to know that there are firms like yours out there. So in the last minute or so, I mean, any final thoughts to listeners about the future of the profession, thinking outside the box?
I'm an optimist by trade. Here's what I can share with you. This is just the start of the movement of what I will say, what I believe is a fundamental right for every American household: access to high quality financial advice. We're starting the new generations in history. This is a really, really exciting time. Right? We are at the point where technology can revolutionize, evolutionize, whether it's peak two or revolution, like a revolution here, can really change the way we deliver advice. For those out there that believe in what we believe here at Facet Wealth, keep up the fight. If you want to talk, give me a call, shoot me an email. If you want to join our team, awesome. If you want to build your own firm and do something, let's build a community. Like, now's the time to do it. People deserve this. Families deserve this. So let's keep up the good fight. And if I can ever support anybody out there, cheers to health, wealth, and a damn good life. That's what I say all the time internally here. And yeah, let's go change the world one financial life at a time.
Let's do it. I love it. Thank you so much, Brent.
Kate, pleasure to be here. Thanks for the time today.